Sign here, here, and here. The lawyer's voice echoed in the marble conference room as he slid the documents across the table. Once you sign, TechVision officially belongs to Mr. Derek Harrison and all intellectual property rights transfer to him. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear. From rage so pure it burned like ice in my veins. The boardroom was packed with investors, lawyers, and the very people I had hired 2 years ago. Every single one of them avoiding my eyes. Derek sat at the head of the table, the seat that used to be mine, wearing a custom Armani suit and that smile. That same smile he'd given me 5 years ago when we shook hands on our partnership. When I trusted him with everything. Next to him sat Cameron, my ex-fiancé. His hand resting possessively on Derek's shoulder. The man I was supposed to marry 3 years ago. The man who knew every dream I ever had, every fear, every weakness. And now he was Derek's husband. Miss Chun, the lawyer said again, more firmly this time. The deadline is today. If you don't sign, Mr. Harrison's legal team will proceed with the lawsuit for fraud and intellectual property theft. My name is Lily Chun. I'm 32 years old, and 5 years ago I was the co-founder and CEO of TechVision, a cybersecurity startup valued at $40 million. I built it from nothing. I coded the first version of our software in my studio apartment, surviving on instant ramen and 3 hours of sleep. I landed our first clients. I pitched to investors until my voice went hoarse. Derek was my college friend who came in as business partner 6 months after I started gaining traction. He was charismatic, connected, good with people in ways I wasn't. I was the genius behind the technology. He was supposed to handle operations and investor relations. I never imagined he was studying me, learning my patterns, stealing my code, planning to take everything. Lily. Derek's voice cut through my thoughts. That condescending tone he'd perfected over the past year. Stop being dramatic. You're holding up the process. We all know you stole the core algorithm from open source repositories and tried to pass it off as original work. I have proof. Lies. Every single word was a calculated lie. But he had something I didn't have back then. Connections, money, and a legal team that could bury me in paperwork until I drowned. The proof is fabricated, I said quietly, my voice steadier than I felt. You know it. I know it. And eventually, everyone in this room will know it too. Derek laughed. Actually laughed. Several people in the room shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up for me. Cameron whispered something in Derek's ear, and they both smirked. I thought back to 3 months ago when I first discovered what Derek had been doing. Small things at first. Client meetings I wasn't invited to. Emails I wasn't copied on. Then bigger things. My access to company accounts being restricted. My security clearance being revoked. My own employees treating me like a stranger in the office I built, and then came the accusation. Derek filed a formal complaint claiming I had stolen the core technology that made TechVision successful. He presented evidence to the board. Carefully doctored emails, falsified timestamps on code repositories, even a fake conversation where I allegedly admitted to plagiarism. The board believed him. Why wouldn't they? Derek was charming, persuasive, and he had Cameron backing up every lie. Cameron, who had access to my personal laptop for years when we were together. Cameron, who knew my passwords, my habits, my backup locations. I hired lawyers, but Derek's team was better funded. I tried to rally support from employees, but Derek had already poisoned the well. I reached out to investors, but they'd already chosen sides. Within 2 months, I went from CEO to defendant in a legal battle I couldn't afford to fight. You have 5 minutes to sign, the head lawyer said, checking his Rolex. After that, we proceed to court, and I promise you, Miss Chen, you don't want that. Derek leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled together like some movie villain. Come on, Lily. Be reasonable, you'll get a small settlement. Enough to start over somewhere else. Maybe go back to school, learn some actual skills instead of pretending to be a tech genius. The room went silent. Even his lawyers looked uncomfortable with that level of cruelty. But I noticed something in that moment. Something important. Derek's right hand twitched slightly when he lied. A tiny tell I'd observed during our partnership but never fully understood until now. It twitched when he said, pretending to be a tech genius. He knew I was the real creator. He knew he was stealing. And some part of him, buried deep beneath the narcissism and greed, felt guilty enough to give away that microscopic tell. I picked up the pen. Everyone in the room tensed, leaning forward slightly. And then I set it down. No, I said simply. Derek's smile faltered. Excuse me? I said no. I stood up, gathering my bag. Take me to court. File your lawsuit. Do whatever you want, but I'm not signing away 5 years of my life to a thief and a liar. You'll lose everything, Derek hissed, his composure cracking. You'll be broke, unemployable, destroyed. I'll make sure of it. I looked him directly in the eyes. Maybe, but you'll have to work much harder than you think. As I walked toward the door, Cameron grabbed my arm. Lily, don't be stupid. Just sign. Derek's being generous, even offering you anything. I pulled my arm free and looked at the man I once loved. Tell me something, Cameron. When exactly did you two start planning this? Before or after you proposed to me? His face went pale. That was answer enough. I walked out of that conference room with nothing but my dignity and a promise I made to myself. I would rebuild. I would rise. And one day, Derek Harrison would regret every choice that led him to this moment. What I didn't tell anyone in that room was that I'd spent the past 3 months doing more than just fighting legal battles. I'd been planning, preparing, documenting. Because unlike Derek, I didn't just see the obvious moves on the board. I saw 20 steps ahead, and the game was just beginning. If you're enjoying this story of betrayal and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You'll want to see how someone who lost everything found a way to win. The lawsuit arrived 48 hours later, hand-delivered by a process server who looked apologetic as he handed me the thick envelope outside my apartment building. 300 pages of legal accusations. Derek wasn't just suing me for intellectual property theft. He was suing for fraud, breach of contract, defamation, and emotional distress. The amount, $75 million. I couldn't afford a lawyer anymore. My savings were gone, burned through in the first round of legal defense. My credit cards were maxed. My apartment lease was up in 2 weeks, and I had nowhere to go. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from former colleagues, investors, even college friends. Most were cutting ties. Some were genuinely concerned, but too afraid of Derek's reach to help. A few were vultures, asking for insider details they could sell to tech blogs. The worst message came from my mother. Lily, your father saw the news. His heart can't take the stress. Please just give them what they want. We didn't come to this country so you could destroy yourself with pride. My parents immigrated from Shanghai when I was 6 years old. My father worked 18-hour shifts at a restaurant. My mother cleaned office buildings at night. They saved every penny to put me through MAT. They believed in the American dream, in working hard and playing by the rules. I thought I'd finally given them that dream when TechVision took off. They got to see their daughter's face in Forbes, 30 under 30. They attended the company launch party at a 5-star hotel. My father cried when I bought them a house in Queens. Now Derek was taking that away too. And he knew exactly how much that would hurt me. The media campaign started on day 3. Tech Insider published an article titled, From MIT Prodigy to Fraud, The Fall of Lily Chen. They quoted anonymous sources claiming I had a history of taking credit for other people's work. That I was difficult to work with. That I had mental health issues that affected my judgment. Every word was Derek's poison, filtered through journalists who didn't bother fact-checking because the story was too juicy to resist. My LinkedIn inbox flooded with recruiters suddenly withdrawing job opportunities. Companies that had been courting me for positions now ghosted my calls. A speaking engagement at a cybersecurity conference was canceled. The organizer said they couldn't risk the controversy. Derek made sure I understood the message. He didn't just want TechVision. He wanted me erased. On day 5, I received a text from Cameron. Derek's being reasonable. Just sign the papers and walk away. You're embarrassing yourself. This isn't the Lily I knew. She would have been smart enough to know when she lost. I stared at that message for a long time. The Lily he knew. The woman who compromised, who avoided conflict, who bent herself into shapes to make other people comfortable. Cameron had loved that version of me. Quiet, accommodating, grateful for his attention. Derek had exploited that version of me. The one who trusted too easily, who believed in handshake agreements, who thought competence alone would protect her. But that Lily was gone. She died in that conference room when I refused to sign. I deleted Cameron's message without responding. What they didn't know was that during those 5 years of partnership, I wasn't just building software. I was learning, watching, recording. I'm a cybersecurity expert. My specialty is protecting digital assets from theft. Every conversation, every meeting, every strategy session at TechVision happened on systems I designed. Systems that kept logs, backups, encrypted files stored in locations Derek never thought to look. When Derek started restricting my access 3 months ago, I didn't panic. I had already secured everything that mattered. Code repositories with original timestamps, email chains proving the technology was mine, video files from security cameras I'd installed in the office, capturing conversations Derek thought were private. I had voice recordings of him admitting to investors that he couldn't understand the technical side, but was smart enough to hire people who could. I had text messages where he asked me to explain basic coding concepts. I had Slack conversations where he praised my genius and said he was lucky to have a partner who could actually build what we're selling. But evidence alone wasn't enough. Derek had money, lawyers, and a narrative that the public wanted to believe. The story of a woman overreaching, claiming credit she didn't deserve, was easier to swallow than the truth. I needed more than proof. I needed leverage. I needed Derek to make a mistake big enough that even his lawyers couldn't fix it. On day 7, I received an unexpected call from an unlisted number. Miss Chun? This is Sarah Michaels. I worked at TechVision until last week. Can we meet? We met at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from the Manhattan tech circles where Derek's influence reached. Sarah was a junior developer I'd hired 18 months ago. Young, talented, and terrified. He fired me, she said, stirring her latte nervously. Derek, he said the company was restructuring, but I know why. I saw the code. My pulse quickened. What code? The new product they're launching next month. The one Derek's been pitching to investors as his revolutionary breakthrough. Sarah pulled out her laptop. It's yours, Lily. All of it. He took your proprietary algorithm, changed some variable names, and is trying to patent it under his name. She showed me screenshots. My work, my innovation. The security protocol I'd spent 2 years perfecting, now being rebranded as Harrison Secure. There's more, Sarah whispered. I found emails between Derek and Cameron. They've been planning this for over a year, since before you and Cameron broke up. They're claiming your original code was actually Derek's, that you've been the one stealing from him all along. The betrayal shouldn't have surprised me anymore, but it did. They hadn't just stolen my company. They'd been plotting my destruction while Cameron still wore my engagement ring. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Sarah met my eyes. Because I came to this industry wanting to work for someone like you. A woman who built something real. And what Derek did to you, he'll do to every woman who threatens him. Someone has to stop him. She slid a USB drive across the table. Everything's on here. Emails, code comparisons, internal memos. I made copies before they wiped my access. I took the drive carefully, understanding the risk she was taking. Sarah, if Derek finds out you gave this to me, he already suspects. That's why you fired me. But here's what he doesn't know. I wasn't the only one watching. There are 3 other developers who saw what he did. They're scared, but they're willing to testify if you can protect them. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than rage. I felt hope. I'll protect you, I promised. All of you. That night, I sat in my nearly empty apartment, reviewing Sarah's files. The evidence was damning. More than damning. It was nuclear, but I still needed one more piece. I needed Derek to believe he'd won completely. I needed him arrogant and careless. I needed him to make the kind of mistake that people make when they think they're untouchable. My phone buzzed. Another message from the legal team. Final settlement offer.
$50,000 and full NDA. Except by tomorrow or face court. $50,000.
For a company worth $40 million. For 5 years of my life, I smiled for the first time in days. They had no idea what was coming. No idea that every threat, every lie, every act of cruelty was being documented, time-stamped, and prepared for the moment when I would burn their entire operation to the ground. Derek wanted me erased. Instead, I was about to become his worst nightmare. I rejected the settlement offer the next morning. The lawyer's response came within minutes. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." Maybe. But I'd learned something crucial working in cybersecurity. The best defense is preparation, and the best defense is patience. I moved out of my apartment into a basement studio in Queens that smelled like mildew and regret. 40 square feet, one window, shared bathroom down the hall. My parents didn't know. They thought I was staying with a friend. The shame of telling them I was essentially homeless would have killed my father faster than any heart condition. But the cheap rent meant I could afford one thing that mattered: time. I spent 18 hours a day rebuilding my case. Not with lawyers. I couldn't afford lawyers. Instead, I did what I do best. I went digital. Every piece of evidence Sarah gave me, I verified independently. I cross-referenced timestamps on code commits with security camera footage from TechVision's office. I matched Derek's calendar entries with email metadata. I found patterns that even his expensive legal team had missed. The original algorithm for TechVision's core product was created on March 14th, 3 years ago at 2:47 a.m. I knew this because my system logs never lied. Derek's first email discussing his revolutionary idea came 6 weeks later, after I'd walked him through every technical aspect. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed someone who could weaponize it. That's when I found Marcus Webb. Marcus wasn't a lawyer. He was something better. An investigative journalist who'd spent 20 years exposing corruption in Silicon Valley. He'd taken down 3 CEOs, uncovered 2 major investment frauds, and his articles had triggered federal investigations that sent people to prison. He was also notoriously difficult to reach. I sent 47 emails before he responded. "Meet me at Veselka, tomorrow. 7 a.m., come alone." The diner was packed with early morning regulars when I arrived. Marcus sat in a corner booth, 50s, gray hair, tired eyes that had seen too many con artists pretend to be victims. "You have 5 minutes, he said, not looking up from his coffee. "Everyone wants to tell me their story. Usually they're lying." I slid my laptop across the table and pressed play on a video file. It was Derek, recorded during a private meeting with investors 2 years ago. The same investors who now sat on TechVision's board. "Look, between us." Derek's voice came through clearly. "I don't understand half of what Lily builds.
I just know how to sell it. She's the genius. I'm the face."
"That's our arrangement." Marcus's eyes flicked up to meet mine. I played the next clip. Derek again, this time in a Slack conversation with Cameron from 18 months ago. "Cameron, how much longer do we need her?" Derek, "Until the Series B closes. Then we restructure. I've already talked to lawyers about creative ways to dilute her shares. By this time next year, she owned less than 10%. Cameron, and if she fights it?" Derek, "She won't. She's too nice. Besides, I've been documenting every mistake she makes. Building a case. When the time comes, we'll make it look like she's incompetent." Marcus took my laptop and scrolled through files for 20 minutes without speaking. Tax documents showing Derek funneling company money into personal accounts. Emails where he instructed employees to exclude me from meetings.
Text messages where he and Cameron celebrated each small victory in destroying my reputation.
When Marcus finally looked up, his expression had changed. "This is Tyrannos-level fraud," he said quietly. "Maybe worse. You can prove all of this?" "Every single piece. Original source files, metadata intact, verified by third-party forensic analysis."
Why come to me?
"Why not take this to the FBI?" "Because Derek has connections. His uncle is a federal judge. His lawyer's firm donates heavily to the district attorney's campaign.
A criminal investigation could take years, and he'd bury evidence before it gained traction." I leaned forward. But you publish this story, and it spreads faster than his lawyers can contain it. Public opinion destroys him before he can spin the narrative. Marcus studied me carefully. What do you want out of this? I want my company back.
I want my reputation back. And I want everyone who helped him to understand there are consequences. He closed my laptop and pushed it back across the table. I'll need 2 weeks to verify everything independently.
If it checks out, I'll run it. Front page.
But understand something, Lily. This will get ugly. Derek will come after you harder than before. He'll try to discredit you. Maybe even threaten you. Can you handle that? I thought about my empty apartment. My parents' disappointment. Cameron's betrayal. Derek's smirk in that conference room.
He already took everything I had, I said.
There's nothing left to threaten me with. Marcus smiled slightly. Then we have a deal. While Marcus investigated, Derek made his first major mistake. He called a press conference to announce TechVision's groundbreaking new product. My algorithm, rebranded and repackaged. The tech press showed up in force. This was supposed to be his coronation. The moment Derek Harrison proved he was a visionary, not just a salesman. I watched the livestream from my basement apartment. Derek stood at a podium wearing a black turtleneck, clearly trying to channel Steve Jobs. Today, we're revolutionizing cybersecurity with Harrison Secure, a protocol I've been developing for 3 years that will change how companies protect sensitive data. Behind him, slides showed technical diagrams.
My diagrams, my code, my innovation.
A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Harrison, there are rumors that this technology was actually developed by your former partner, Lily Chen. Can you address those allegations? Derek's smile didn't waver. Lily was an employee who contributed to early research, but the core innovation is mine. In fact, we discovered she had been attempting to claim credit for work she didn't do, which is why she's no longer with the company. Lie. Clean, confident, practiced lie. Another reporter.
But Miss Chen was listed as co-founder and CEO. That's more than just an employee. Titles don't reflect actual contribution, Derek said smoothly.
Lily was brought on because of her connection to certain investors, not her technical ability. The actual development work was done by my team, under my direction. Cameron sat in the front row, nodding along, backing up every word with his presence. I recorded every second of that press conference. Every lie. Every fabrication. Every moment of Derek's arrogance. That night, Sarah called me. 2 more developers want to help. They saw the press conference and they're furious. One of them has internal emails proving Derek couldn't code basic Python. Is that useful? Extremely useful. The evidence kept mounting.
A former TechVision intern came forward with recordings of Derek, asking her to explain technical concepts to him.
An accountant provided documents showing Derek had been paying himself 3 times the agreed salary while cutting my compensation. Even one of Derek's own investors reached out quietly, admitting he suspected fraud, but couldn't prove it. They'd all been waiting for someone brave enough to go first. Marcus called on day 12. Everything checks out. More than checks out. This is the biggest tech fraud story since Enron. I'm running it Monday morning. Are you ready? I thought about that question. Was I ready to watch Derek's world collapse? Ready to reclaim everything he'd stolen? I've been ready since the day he tried to erase me. Sunday night, Derek posted on social media. Grateful for this incredible journey. TechVision just closed a $100 million Series C. To everyone who doubted us, watch what happens next. The photo showed him and Cameron at a fancy restaurant, champagne glasses raised. Derek's suit probably cost more than my entire year's rent. He had no idea that in 8 hours, Marcus's article would go live. No idea that his investors were about to receive evidence of systematic fraud. No idea that the developers he'd intimidated were ready to testify. Derek thought he'd won. He thought the lawsuit, the media campaign, the public humiliation had broken me. What he didn't understand was that broken things can be rebuilt. And sometimes they come back stronger. Marcus's article went live at 6 a.m. on Monday. The headline: The $100 million Lie. How Derek Harrison built an empire on stolen code and destroyed the woman who created it By 6:30 a.m., it had 50,000 shares. By 7 a.m., it was trending on every tech platform. By 8 a.m., Derek's world was burning. I sat in my basement apartment, watching it all unfold in real time. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, messages, calls from reporters. I ignored them all. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about truth having its moment. Marcus hadn't just published a story. He'd published a complete autopsy of Derek's fraud. The article included everything. Time-stamped code commits proving I created the algorithm. Video footage of Derek admitting he didn't understand the technical side. Email chains showing him plotting to force me out. Financial records revealing he'd embezzled company funds. Text messages between him and Cameron planning my destruction, while Cameron was still engaged to me. But the most damaging piece was the recording from the investors' meeting. Derek's own voice. "She's the genius. I'm just the face." The internet exploded. TechVision's investors released a statement before noon. "We are suspending all operations pending a full investigation into allegations of fraud and mismanagement by CEO Derek Harrison. The Series C funding? Frozen immediately. Harrison secures product launch? Cancelled. Derek speaking engagement at a major tech conference? Withdrawn." By 2 p.m., 3 board members had resigned. By 4 p.m., 2 major clients had terminated their contracts. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "You did this." Derek's voice was barely recognizable. Raw, panicked, furious. "You destroyed everything." "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed everything. I just made sure people knew about it. I'll sue you for defamation." For breach of confidentiality. With what money, Derek? Your investors just pulled funding. Your board is abandoning you. And every piece of evidence in that article is verified and legally obtained. Sue me, please. I'd love to see you try to explain those recordings in court. Silence. Then, we can fix this. If you make a statement saying the article is exaggerated. Goodbye, Derek. I hung up. 3 hours later, Cameron called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Lily." His voice cracked. "Please, you have to do something. Derek's having a breakdown." "The lawyers say we could face criminal charges." I didn't know it would go this far. I thought it was just business. Just business? I repeated slowly. You helped him steal 5 years of my life. You betrayed me while wearing my ring. You lied to investigators, to reporters, to everyone. And you thought it was just business? "I loved you," Cameron whispered. No. You loved the idea of being married to a successful woman you could control. When Derek offered you a piece of something bigger, you took it. Don't insult me by pretending this was complicated. What do you want from us? I want Derek to sign over his shares of TechVision to me. All of them. I want a public apology admitting to fraud. I want both of you to resign from any involvement with my company. And I want it done by tomorrow, or Marcus publishes the second article. What second article? The one detailing how you accessed my personal laptop to steal passwords and confidential files. That's called corporate espionage, Cameron. It's a federal crime. So you can either cooperate, or you can explain it to the FBI. I'd bluffed about having enough evidence for criminal charges, but Cameron didn't know that. His breathing became rapid, panicked. I'll talk to Derek. The next morning, I received an email from Derek's lawyer. Attached was a signed document transferring all of Derek's shares to me, along with a formal apology admitting he had misrepresented his contributions to TechVision's technology and wrongfully attempted to claim credit for Miss Chun's innovations. It was corporate speak for, I lied and I got caught, but it was enough. By noon, the apology was public. Derek had posted it on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Medium. The comments were ruthless. Imagine being so mediocre you have to steal a woman's work to feel successful. Derek Harrison is why we need better accountability in tech. Lily Chen deserves every penny of the $100 million that Derek just lost. That last comment made me smile. Derek hadn't just lost the company. He'd lost the Series C funding, his reputation, his speaking fees, his consulting deals.
Everything he'd built on my stolen work had evaporated in 72 hours. The developers who'd helped me, Sarah and the others, were offered their jobs back with raised salaries and equity stakes. I made sure of it personally.
TechVision's board, now desperate to salvage what remained of the company, held an emergency meeting.
They asked me to return as CEO. I walked into that same marble conference room where Derek had tried to force me to sign away my life. Some of the same people were there.
Some had been replaced.
Everyone looked nervous.
Miss Chen, the board chairman said carefully,
"We owe you an apology. We should have investigated Derek's claims more thoroughly. We should have listened to your defense.
We failed you, and we failed this company." I sat down at the head of the table, Derek's old seat. "You didn't fail the company," I said. "You failed basic due diligence.
You believed a charismatic man over a competent woman because it was easier.
Because it fit your expectations." Several people shifted uncomfortably. "But here's what's going to happen," I continued.
"I'm taking control of TechVision. I'm restructuring the board to include people who actually understand technology. I'm implementing new governance policies to prevent this from ever happening again.
And anyone who participated in Derek's campaign against me has 30 days to resign, or I'll make sure your involvement is public record." 3 board members resigned that afternoon.
The media coverage shifted overnight.
Suddenly I wasn't the disgraced founder.
I was the wronged genius who'd fought back. Forbes wanted an interview.
TechCrunch wanted an exclusive.
A literary agent reached out about a book deal, but the sweetest moment came 2 weeks later. I was in my new office, the corner suite that Derek had renovated for himself, when security called. "Miss Chen, there's a Derek Harrison here asking to see you. He says it's urgent." I paused.
"Send him up."
Derek looked like he'd aged 10 years.
His suit was wrinkled.
His hair was uncombed.
The arrogance was gone, replaced by something desperate and hollow.
"Lily." He stood in my doorway like a stranger.
"I need to talk to you. You have 5 minutes." He sat down heavily.
"I'm broke.
The lawyers took everything. Cameron left me.
Moved to California, won't return my calls. I can't get hired anywhere. Every company I apply to, they Google my name and ... double quotes." He trailed off.
"And they see what you really are," I finished.
"I'm asking for your help." The audacity almost made me laugh.
"My help? You won. Okay, you won. You got everything back."
"I'm not asking for money or a position. I just need you to make a statement saying, I'm not ... that I've changed. That people should give me a second chance." I leaned back in my chair and studied him.
The man who'd stolen my company, ruined my reputation, and tried to erase me from an industry I'd helped build.
"You're right about one thing," I said.
"I did win, but not because I destroyed you.
I won because I built something real, and the truth always surfaces eventually." I stood up, signaling the meeting was over. "You want a second chance? Earn it, the way I had to. Start from nothing.
Build something genuine. And maybe in 10 years, someone will believe you've changed.
If you're watching this and thinking about giving up on your dreams because someone betrayed you, don't. Subscribe to this channel to see how the next chapter unfolds. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just getting even.
It's getting everything back." Derek stood slowly.
At the door, he turned back. "For what it's worth."
"You were always better than me. I knew it from the beginning."
"That's why I had to take it from you.
Because I could never create what you created."
It wasn't quite an apology.
But it was the closest to truth Derek Harrison had ever spoken.
After he left, I looked out my office window at the Manhattan skyline.
5 years ago, I'd stood in the same spot as a co-founder filled with naive optimism. Then Derek had nearly destroyed me. But standing here now, I wasn't the same person.
I was stronger, smarter, wiser about who deserved my trust. And I was just getting started. 5 years later,
TechVision was valued at $300 million.
We'd expanded into artificial intelligence security, hired 200 employees,
and opened offices in San Francisco, London, and Singapore. Our client list included Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and major financial institutions. I stood on the stage at Tech Week, the industry's largest conference, delivering a keynote speech to 5,000 attendees.
The same conference that had canceled my speaking engagement 5 years ago when Derek's lies seemed like truth.
Cybersecurity isn't just about protecting data, I told the audience. It's about protecting trust.
And when that trust is violated, whether by hackers or by people inside your organization, the damage goes deeper than any financial loss. I clicked to the next slide. It showed TechVision's growth trajectory, but also something else, our initiative to mentor women and minorities in tech. We'd created scholarships, funded coding boot camps, and established a legal defense fund for founders facing IP theft. After my speech, reporters swarmed with questions. But the moment that mattered came later, backstage. Sarah, the junior developer who'd risked everything to help me, walked up with 3 other women. She was now TechVision's chief technology officer.
Lily, I want you to meet the new engineering hires. They're all women who left toxic companies where their work was being stolen or credited to men. When they heard TechVision's story, they knew this was where they needed to be. I shook their hands, seeing my younger self in their determined eyes.
Welcome to a company that values what you create, not just what you can be credited for. That evening, I returned to my office in Manhattan. Not the cramped basement in Queens, but a penthouse workspace with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. My parents' photos sat on my desk. They'd attended my keynote speech today. My father had cried again, but this time from pride, not shame.
My assistant knocked. Miss Chen, your 6 p.m. is here. Send him in.
Derek Harrison entered my office for the 3rd time this month.
He looked better than he had 5 years ago, healthier, cleaner, more grounded.
But the arrogance was permanently gone, replaced by something that resembled humility. He worked for me now.
Not as an executive.
As a mid-level operations manager handling vendor relationships and logistics, it wasn't glamorous.
It wasn't what he'd imagined when he stole my company. But it was honest work. After his public downfall, Derek had disappeared for 2 years. Rumor said he'd moved to Portland, worked construction, lived in a studio apartment.
He'd tried to launch a new startup, but no investor would touch him. His name was radioactive. 18 months ago, he'd sent me an email.
Lily, I don't deserve your forgiveness and I'm not asking for it.
But I'm asking for a chance to prove that people can change. I'll take any position, any salary. I just want to do something real instead of pretending. I'd ignored it at first. Then I thought about what I'd told him in that final meeting. Earn your second chance the way I had to. So I'd given him a job, entry level, no special treatment.
He reported to Sarah, the woman he'd fired for being too ethical. The irony wasn't lost on anyone.
Status update on the Singapore vendor contracts, Derek said, handing me a tablet.
His reports were thorough, accurate, professional. He'd learned that competence mattered more than charisma. Good work, I said. The negotiations look solid. Thank you. He started to leave, then paused. I saw your keynote speech today. What you said about trust. I finally understand what I destroyed. Not just your company.
The trust people had in this industry to reward actual innovation. I nodded. We'd had versions of this conversation before. Derek was genuinely trying to rebuild himself, but some stains don't wash out completely.
How's the business ethics course you're teaching at community college? I asked.
Surprisingly fulfilling. Students actually listen when you can tell them exactly what happens when you cheat. The real consequences, not hypothetical ones. He managed a slight smile. Turns out being a cautionary tale has its uses. After he left, I thought about the journey from that conference room where I'd refused to sign my life away to this moment.
Derek had tried to erase me, but I'd rewritten the entire narrative. Cameron had moved to Los Angeles, working in real estate.
We hadn't spoken since the day I'd taken back TechVision. Last I heard, he'd married someone else. I felt nothing about it, not anger, not satisfaction, just the blank indifference reserved for people who no longer matter. The real victory wasn't that Derek worked for me now, or that Cameron had faded into obscurity, or even that TechVision had become worth more than Derek ever imagined. The victory was that I'd learned something crucial. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's becoming so successful that their betrayal becomes irrelevant.
My phone buzzed. Marcus Webb, the journalist who'd published the article that changed everything. Lily, I'm writing a follow-up piece.
5 years after the Tech Vision scandal. How Lily Chen rebuilt an industry? Can I get a quote?
Sure. Tell them this. When someone tries to take credit for your work, don't just fight to reclaim it. Build something so undeniable that your name becomes synonymous with innovation. Make yourself impossible to erase. That quote would be printed in newspapers, shared on social media, taught in business school classes about ethics and resilience. But what I didn't tell Marcus was the private lesson I'd learned. Betrayal reveals who people really are. Derek's theft showed me he was hollow. Cameron's lies showed me he was weak. The board's cowardice showed me they valued comfort over truth. And my refusal to sign those papers? That showed me I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. The next morning, I received an invitation to testify before Congress about intellectual property protection in the tech industry. They wanted to hear from someone who'd fought back against theft and won. I accepted immediately. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every founder who'd been gaslit by a partner. Every woman who'd watched a man take credit for her ideas. Every innovator who'd been told they were too emotional or not a team player when they demanded recognition. My story had become their blueprint for fighting back. TechVision's mission statement now hung in our lobby in letters 3 feet tall. We build security systems that protect what matters. Code, data, truth. Sometimes, former colleagues from the Derek era would reach out, apologizing for not supporting me when it mattered. I accepted their apologies but kept them at a distance. Fair-weather friends weren't worth the energy. The people who mattered were the ones who'd helped me rebuild. Sarah and the developers who'd risked their careers. Marcus, who'd believe my story when no one else would. My parents, who'd never doubted me even when I doubted myself. And weirdly, Derek, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because watching him do honest work day after day, without shortcuts or schemes, proved that even people who've done terrible things can choose to be better. That didn't erase what he'd done. But it meant the world wasn't divided into irredeemable villains and perfect heroes. It was filled with flawed people making choices, and those choices had consequences. 5 years ago, Derek made a choice to steal from me. Today he lived with those consequences. 5 years ago, I made a choice to fight back instead of disappearing. Today, I was building an empire that would outlast any betrayal. The best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting everything. And if you're facing your own Derek right now, someone who's trying to take credit for your work, steal your dreams, or erase your contributions, remember this. Document everything. Trust your instincts, and never sign away what you built just because someone tells you you've lost. You haven't lost until you stop fighting. So, what about you? Have you ever had someone try to take credit for your work? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. And if this story of betrayal, justice, and ultimate triumph resonated with you, subscribe to this channel for more real stories about people who refuse to be erased. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Because sometimes the best stories aren't about people who never fall down. They're about people who get back up, dust themselves off, and build something even better than before. That's not revenge. That's legacy.